Welcome to the Future of Sharing, the series where we're trying to figure out how do we make the sharing economy work for everyone. We're doing this series in partnership with Airbnb. I'm Pete Leiden. I'm the founder of Reinvent, the media company that's doing the series, and I'll be hosting this conversation here with Kai Jia. Now, Kai Jia is a lecturer at the School of Political Science and Public Administration at the University of Electronic Science and Technology in China. He's in Chengdu, China right now. He's coming across the internet into our office right here. Welcome here. Good to see you.
Hi, audience. Yeah, thank you, Pete, for inviting me to join this conversation. Yeah.
Yes. He's also a visiting lecturer at UC Davis, and through that, he's kind of got a foot in understanding the platform and sharing economy in the United States and kind of Western environment. And he also is now in China an expert in the sharing economy in China. So it's awesome because that is exactly what we'd love to talk to you about today, about the sharing economy in China.
It's my pleasure too. Yeah.
Which is quite, well, you describe it. I mean, so when, if you thought of a Western audience or many of the people that are watching this will actually be more familiar with kind of the sharing economy in the United States, let's say, or Europe, how would you just describe what's going on in the sharing economy in China right now? Our understanding is it's growing, it's big, much is going on, but could you give us a little perspective on what you see happening in the sharing economy in China right now as an overview?
Yes, of course. So as we all know, so China has already becoming a big market. So there is a word says that copy to China. It says that in the computer in the maybe from 2000 to 2010. So the American is the leading innovator in the internet world. So copy to China means that entrepreneurs will copy the business model of the United States to the China. So that is copy to China. But nowadays, it seems that there is more innovative ways in Chinese market, different from the US, especially for the sharing economy. For example, there are so many more or new models emerged in China that does not exist in the US, and it comes to my mind so that the sharing economy has different forms and different forms at present. For my understanding, we can categorize into two kinds of sharing economy. The first one is that we all know about Uber or Airbnb or things like that. The counterpart of Uber in China is Didi, as you may know. So the car sharing platform. So Didi, just similar to Uber, it's a platform and it opens the interface for the individuals to supply cars on that, and so I can order the car service, car sharing. And the second category in China, so it's a new model. It's about the sharing bicycles. I don't know whether so you can. I've already saw the news that you can see the yellow bicycles around San Francisco. Have you seen that?
Yes, the bicycles.
So that's a new model. So for Didi, it's just the users, ourselves, we supply cars and we consume that. But for OFO, for the sharing bicycles, so the platform, the company provide or supplies the bicycles. And we as consumers just ride the bicycles as we will. So why we call that is a sharing bicycle. It's also another kind of sharing economy for me. It's only the right to use, not the right to own. So from this perspective, it's also the sharing bicycle. But from another perspective, it's different from Didi, as the suppliers are not the consumers themselves. The suppliers are the company. But the question is, there are so many bicycles. They are providing so many bicycles. You can use it anywhere, any place, anytime. So and also it's different from the past. The bicycles can be, there is no regulation. So the bicycles can be parked at the cinema or just a shopping center, at the university, anywhere. even in the middle of the road, there is no one to care about that. So it causes some problems, but also it brings so much convenience. And as you may know, so if I get off the subway, I want to go to the university. There is 1 mile away. But if I have the bicycle, I can just take off my cell phone and open the bicycles and ride it to the university. It takes a lot of time. But in the before, I have to walk to the university. It's a long. 1 mile is not is a short. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter. But anyway, the sharing bicycles is a bit advancement or is a bit business model also in China.
Yeah.
But
Go ahead. So go ahead. What were you going to say? I didn't want to interrupt you. You were saying something more about the bicycle. I guess let me just hold 1 second. So you're talking about two different kinds of sharing economies in China, and you're saying the Didi one, which is more like Uber and Airbnb. I'm just want to kind of reiterate what you said there. Is where an individual owns a car or owns a house or is renting a house or something, and is sharing that or using that vehicle that they own to ride share or something like that. That's the traditional way that we've been thinking about it out here.
Yeah.
You're saying there's a different category of sharing economy in China that the company itself, the platform and company itself owns the things and just essentially rents them out, but is sharing them in that people are sharing the same bike amongst many people, right? Is that the way to think of it?
Yeah, that's correct. Exactly. So,
is that the same? But you see that as different, which is true. It's different because it's not. Well, tell me why do you see the differences there? That's a big difference. You need a lot of capital investment to get these bikes. Nobody really owns the bikes. I mean, it's an interesting differentiation from the other.
I mean, from my understanding, the most important difference between these two categories is because of the role played by the capital. So as you have already mentioned, so the second category of the sharing economy is about the sharing bicycles. It needs a large sum of investment of capitals. But for our conventional understanding, sharing economy is maybe more depends on the social capital. So more depends on the sharing, not capital. But for the second form of the sharing economy, it more depends on the investment of the capital. But one interesting is that the capital, the resource of the capital maybe become diverse. For the sharing bicycles, you need a lot of money to produce the cars, to produce the bicycles, and to put those bicycles on the road. You guess where the capital comes from. First, it's of course it's about the venture capitals, the VCs, and the second, because every person or every user who wants to use this bicycle, you need to have a deposit first, or a deposit first to put into the platform. So the platform gathering the deposit of different people, and they use that. They can use that money to produce more. But of course, it's just like a bank. It's just like bank. You deposit, for example, $50. Yeah, it's just $50. Similar to 300 RMB. $50. Every individual deposit $50 onto the platform. But there are so many people, and so the platform gathered a large sum of capital, which they can use to produce more bicycles. It's more related to the scale.
Totally.
So
it's a huge, but also it's a huge. If you're a bike, if you're one of these there's apparently 40 or 50 of these companies, right, in China, and in every city, then you'd have to have all these bicycles. So there's a huge amount of capital investment that needs to happen, right? As opposed to just setting up a platform and having everyone with a bike share their bike, right? It's a very different model. And
it's a very clever model. And also, but it's all at the very beginning. There is no regulation. So but at present, there is some regulation, very small regulations. I will talk about more. I will talk about later about the government regulation. At first, there is no regulation, so the money users deposit in the platform can be used anywhere, anytime, and in any means. But nowadays, there are some regulations on that. But what I want to state is following. Okay.
Well, just explain the regulations. What do you mean there's no regulations from the government about where you can put the bikes, or how do you have to? Would say more about the regulation, that there's there must be some rules that the companies say, but there's not regulations from the government. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. At the very beginning of this business model, there is no regulation. So the platform can use the money users deposit into the company any means, even just take the money away. But that causes problem. That causes problems, of course. So gradually, maybe I cannot. Gradually, there is more regulations on that kind of capital. So it says that the platform cannot use this money to produce more. It just can. It must be working as it must be stored and cannot be used, because you have to repay if the users want to quit the platform. You have to repay. You have to turn their money back. Mm-hmm. If not, it has been causing some big problems. Mm-hmm. So, but after when this regulation comes out, there has already been big players. So there are maybe two platforms, OFO and Mobike. OFO and Mobike. They have already been formed. The large platforms, large sharing companies, like Uber, like Didi in China. So the market has already been formed. So maybe the regulation just stops or just build a barrier for the latecomers. But the market has already formed.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, So what matters is that the second category is not only limited to the bicycles. You mean maybe, as you may know, the bicycles is very cheap. So a single bicycle is very cheap. So you can produce large sums of bicycles. But following the same business model, there are more. So the model has been applied to different fields. The recent is cars. So sharing cars. So for my understanding, it's crazy. So there is one platform or one sharing company called Meituan. It's just like a Coupang. So you deliver food on this platform, and he will send to you the food or restaurant or things like that. It's just this company, and it raised a large sum of venture capital. And it applied this business model about the sharing bicycle model to the cars. So he bought so many cars and parked anywhere, and so consumers can use it anytime, anywhere, any place.
A full car.
Yeah, for cars. That's crazy. That's incredible. So you cannot say. It's different from Didi, and it's more like capital intensive investment, and whether it will success, it depends. But the same business model has also been applied to the charges. The mobile phone charges. Mm-hmm. I don't know you use that
charger,
or not.
The charger, yeah.
Yeah, chargers. Uh-huh. When your smartphone go out of battery, you will charge it with just portable chargers. It seems like a tiny equipment, but it's also it's very very in China. So when I go to a restaurant, maybe my smartphone is out of battery, and before I have no idea where to borrow or chargers. But nowadays, so the platform produce or supply the charges in every restaurant. You can You can use just you use your smartphone to scan the code, and you can get charges. And after you use that, you return back. So also it's a capital intensive, because you have to supply so many charges in so many restaurants
Totally.
in anywhere, or in airports, or in railway station, in restaurants, in cinemas, things like that. So the platform supplies this equipment, supplies this resource, and the users just use the consumers use it. Or maybe I can use it, after I use it, I return it back, and you can use it later. So this business model has been copied or has been applied to different fields. So for my understanding, these two. Also, maybe we can arguing that this is not true sharing, but for my understanding, if we understand from the perspective that we as the users, we don't own it, we don't own it as a property, we just use it as a resource. It's still sharing, it's still a sharing economy, but it has already been go beyond our imagination about our conventional understanding of the sharing economy, which depends on the social capital. It's more, it's more depends on the capital investment. It's more it has already been changed or be transformed to a capital intensive industry.
No. So I like that. So on one hand, you have the old model of, or the original model, you could say, of sharing economy is human capital, is the way you said it. It rests a lot on human capital, meaning
Yes.
people to people connecting, working out deals, handing off the product, sharing their spaces, talking to each other in the car, whatever it is. There's a lot of human capital involved in that. And this one that you're saying is just pure capital, money capital,
Yes.
financial capital kind of involved. But I do also see it's a compelling point that it's still sharing the same resources. And so it feels like there is a commonality there, but it's also a differentiation. Well, now the biggest differentiation for me is, given that capital infusion it needs, I mean, are there good examples of financially successful companies that I mean, given the incredible investment you have to make in these bikes or in these cars or in these, chargers, are they able to come out the other end as a profitable business, or are they all still a work in progress? We don't really know how the model's playing out here.
So as for the profits, the revenue model, it seems that at present it just see the investment or the venture capital wants to expand it as soon as possible to become monopoly, to become monopolized. But at present, it didn't say that there is so much, their revenue model is clear. But for the bicycle, for the sharing bicycle, there is a space for the imagination, just as maybe as we saw that, because when you have different or all kinds of first, you have the surplus from the government, because government wants to promote that people just don't use the cars, people ride the bicycles more. So there are some subsidy from the government, and for the second, the sharing bicycles, because it's so huge. There are so many bicycles all around there, and it can be. And also one more characteristic for this is the lot of the bicycles is digital. The lot of the bicycles is digital. So the digital lot can be used as a collection, can work as a collection dot of the Internet of Internet of Things, IoT. It can be.
So you're meaning, so just to clarify this to the people watching, so in other words, you have the bike, it's got a GPS kind of,
Yes.
so it knows digitally where it is.
Embedded, yeah.
It has a way to unlock it through a digital code or something. You make payments digitally. So essentially, when you think of a bike, yes, it's a bike, but it's essentially this digital artifact. That I also understand in the Chinese context, it's not like you put them in a locked rack or something, which is more characteristic of the United States, for example. But these are, you leave them anywhere, right? Because you can find them through your GPS wherever they are in any place, right? Isn't that the difference too?
Yeah, it can be. It can work on that as an entrance to the Internet of Things, and also just the story tells. So at present there is no clear revenue model, but there is still lots of investment, lots of capital flowed in. But it can be worked as an entrance of the Internet of Things, and also it can be worked as a platform for the advertisement, because you have so many they have so many users. For example, when do you need a bicycle? It's just because you go to a restaurant, you go to a cinema. When you get off the subway, when you get off the public transportation tools, but there is still 1 mile away. And also, so for one thing, you have to take off your smartphone and open the sharing bicycle app to find the bag. But at the same time, this app can recommend you the restaurant. You can recommend you the shops that you can. So if you have the huge user base, you can do the extension. You can do the horizontal expansion. So that is also what I want to talk later is. Also, this is a topic that I worked with Martin to talk about the business model of Chinese internet platforms. They are getting used to expand horizontally, to horizontal expansion to different fields. For example, the Didi, also for example, the sharing bicycle platforms. They can expand beyond their business model. They can do the food to the restaurant recommendation. They can expand to the advertisement, and they can expand to the car sharing. So they can expand to different sectors.
So okay, so that's a good distinction too. So again, I'm just kind of laying out the pieces here that you're laying out here, which is the Western version tends to be a vertical, like Airbnb is just, hey, we're just doing, right now houses, or, if I'm doing the car sharing, it's Uber or, whatever it is. You specialize essentially in one area. And you're saying the Chinese model is essentially a horizontal play, that they want to establish a foothold in one of those, but with the idea of selling into other categories. Is that's a consistent thing for
absolutely.
all these?
So
they're all doing this.
The most prominent examples is Alibaba and Tencent. So they do different kinds of sectors. They do different kinds of businesses. So Alibaba, the business model of Alibaba covers the more than e-commerce. Alibaba do invest a lot, or do the Didi. A large sum of investment of Didi comes from Alibaba and Tencent. So also Alibaba do the entertainment. So it owns the largest online video sharing websites, just like YouTube in the US. Alibaba owns the YouTube. So the similar to YouTube, the largest. And Alibaba also got the Alipay, the payment platform. So the payment platform, based on the payment platform, it has already integrated the food delivery, restaurant recommendation, and also the public service. You can pay your bills on payment on Alipay. All different kinds of. Also, you can buy the tickets. Also, you can buy the cinema tickets, movie tickets. You can buy the train tickets or airline, or everything you can do in the same app in the Alipay. So
But a lot of that is not necessarily sharing economy, but you're just saying it's a
yeah,
comprehensive.
it's a horizontal expansion. It's not all about the sharing economy, but it's I mean, so for the back to the sharing bicycle sharing companies. I mean, their revenue model is not clear at present, but there is a space for the imagination. For at least that is what they say to the investment, to the venture capital. So if they have the huge user base, they can expand horizontally to different sectors, and there is no uh, I mean, the regulation is very little. There is no there, even for the horizontal expansion. So if you want to expand horizontally, there is no regulation from the government, or there is less regulation from the government at present. So he can say that I want to expand to different sectors, and also that is where where the revenue comes from.
Interesting. So right now it's kind of as we say in the United States, kind of the Wild West. It's way open. Anyone can do anything, and so
Yeah,
that's
it's
one of the reasons they're putting so much capital in there is to whoever wins is going to have a great business potentially.
But that's another issue related to the government regulation. So I mean, at present it's a wide space, but for bicycle sharing for the certain categories. But as we have already seen that the government has been or doing is playing their roles not at present in the sharing economy, especially for Didi. So way back to the first category for Didi, at the very beginning, there is no regulation on Didi. But in 2014, but in 2015, and 2016, in 2016, more and more regulations has been imposed on Didi, on the car sharing. Two most important points is about the relationship between Didi and the drivers. This is also it's a very hot topic in the West. And second is about the requirements of the cars that can be used on this platform. So the first is that the government requires that the platform, the Didi, should sign a contract with drivers. So it didn't recognize, or it didn't force that you have to Didi have to recognize that the drivers as employers of your company. It didn't say that kind of things, but it indeed requires that Didi needs to sign a contract with the drivers and in the contract you have to state clearly about the responsibility and your rights in this contract. And the second one is the cars that can be embedded, or the cars that can be used in this platform. There is different from the private cars. You have to match some standards. You have to match some requirements. For example, you have to be you cannot be I mean, the cars has to be new. It cannot be a 10 years old cars which can run on this platform. The cars have to be new, and so some requirements similar to this. So these 2 points for my understanding, it's a burden. It's a burden for the Didi, for the sharing platform. But for now, because Didi has already become a giant, a unicorn, so it can sustain this. So it didn't impact. It didn't have caused a great impact on Didi, but it also cuts off it builds a barrier for the latecomers.
Right.
So and under the regulation, different cities, I mean, different local governments have different preference. They maybe impose more burdens on the sharing platform, or they just but anyway, there is regulation on Didi. So government is gradually, after the market has already been formed, the Chinese government has already got intervened into this market and become a big player.
Now, in terms of, we've been talking about some of the problems here, or the issues, what makes it different from Western companies. Talk more about the positive side of this. For example, when you first talked about the bikes, you were saying it makes it more convenient. It allows people to get from the public transportation to their homes. And talk about the popularity of this a little bit more. Is this something that aside from the capital formation and how it even happened, what about the experience of it? Do you find that Chinese people like the sharing model? Is it helpful? Is it making life easier? Is it difficult? Is it causing problems? I'm just curious what you make of the whole situation there.
I think what also I want to say is this is also related to how we consider sharing economy and how we help the sharing economy to develop a better future. So for the positive for the sharing economy, for the sharing bicycles is very obvious. So it's so popular in at present. So I can use for my experience, I will use at least twice or three times of these bicycles. Anytime I go, so less than less than 2 miles, we can just ride the bicycle, and it's very cheap. It's very cheap. So in Chinese market, in Chinese context, the price is very important for the consumers. At the very beginning of Didi, there are the platform, the Didi, the company provides a large sum of subsidies for the consumers. You maybe before Didi comes out, maybe we have to pay 50 RMB to just to take a taxi. But after Didi, you can use only 10 yuan, 10 RMB. It's much less. So it becomes very popular in very short time. The same logic applies to the sharing bicycles. So at the very beginning, it's also it's free. It's completely free. You can just ride the bicycle, and it's completely free. So at the very beginning, it also gains a lot of popularity, and gradually, it's not free, but you have to. But the money you have to pay for one ride is very tiny, just maybe 1 cent or just like that. It's very tiny, and so people are getting used to it, and people love it. It's very convenient. Anytime you less than 2 miles, you can use this bicycle. And what's also the most important thing is that you can find it anywhere. I can find it just when I go off the elevator door of my house. I can find one bicycle. And people can find it. And people can use it. There are so many huge numbers on it. But also, that's the negative parts of this business model. There are so many bicycles, so it has already been resource consuming. So you have already have already been the supply, so more than that we need. It has causing natural disaster. So you can see the picture of the sharing bicycles. Some pictures in the big cities in Shanghai, in Beijing, and also in Chengdu. You can see tons of bicycles compiled together, just like a tomb, the bicycles are deserted, it's wasted. So, and also because maybe you, as I mentioned, that you may find a bicycle in the middle of the road. That's because of people, that's of the users who use that last ones. Maybe they didn't care where they didn't care where the bicycle is placed, so he can park it anywhere. So for a person who didn't obey the social rules, the social informal rules, he will park it in the middle of the road, and it happens. So it causes some problem. So it causes the most important thing, the most important negative parts of this business model at present is concerning about the resource waste, the resource wasted.
Which is ironic, at least from a Western point of view, because one of the things about the sharing economy has been this idea that, if 10 people share one bike, then there's only one bike and you don't need 10 bikes. But what you're kind of saying weirdly is, given the crazy beginning of this industry with everybody competing and bringing all the bikes in, it's actually wasting bikes. So there's more bikes than you need, as opposed to efficiently using the smaller number of bikes. It's doing the opposite. That's unfortunate.
So I mean, that's a natural consequence about the overproduction. So as long as this business model is motivated by the capital, it seems logical that it will come to the overproduction. But it's different from Didi. So it's different from the first categories of the sharing economy. So it depends on the user. It's users themselves who supply these cars, who supply these resources, and it's also the users themselves who consume this products. So it may to some extent cause this overproduction, but it's not a big problem from my understanding. But for the second,
from that first category,
from this first, but for the second category, because it's motivated by the capital, and it pursues the large scale, and so the overproduction is a natural consequences. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's also what the government is intervening at present. The government has already it's not a formal regulation, but it has already been become a common sense that the government needs to do something to regulate this behavior. So in some cities, like in Shanghai, in Beijing, in Shenzhen, there has already been regulation says that you cannot the company, the platform cannot put so many bicycles on the street. So you cannot put more bicycles. So the companies OFO or the Mobike, they are taped on producing more and more bicycles and put on it on the street. But the government says that stop. You cannot put you can put some bicycles into other cities, but not in Shanghai, not in Beijing, not in Chengdu.
Fair enough.
Just to tape that, just to tape the public roads, public space to for ordinary use. There is also, and that's what I want to state is that sharing economy needs to be guided, and maybe that's my point for this moment. I mean, the sharing economy needs to be directed, needs to be guided, also by the government, also by the social force, also by third parties. But it needs to be regulated, or it needs to be guided to some direction. As for the understanding of the Chinese experience, it says, I mean, the business model, the new technology can be directed into different direction. So it can go to the positive sides, it can go to the negative sides, but the government or something, third parties needs to be guided and needs to step out to guide this direction, or it will become somewhat a disaster.
Now, a couple other ideas about that. But by the way, is anyone else thinking like that? I mean, is there a growing demand for that kind of guidance or that kind of regulation, or is it?
Yes. For my understanding, it's a growing concern nowadays in China. So especially from the government from the parts of government. So on one hand, nowadays Chinese government is more open to the innovation, to the more technology innovation, to the business model innovation, to things like that. For example, I'm in Chengdu, and also I'm a visiting research fellow of the new economy and development research center of the city, and Chengdu has already issued some policy about the sharing economy. For example, they just issued sharing of the resources of the parking resources. So it opens the parking lots of the universities, of the public departments for the whole society to use the parking lots. So and the government is open. It's a good thing to to solve the problem, to solve the big cities problem. So the government is open to the sharing economy. But on the other hand,
sharing in that case, sharing parking spaces. You're saying,
sharing parking space. The city, Chengdu has already opened, has already stepped out to open the public departments, the parking lots, the parking resources.
But do you coordinate that through a platform? Is that does it have an app or something that you find where are the open?
You can have an app. You can have an app, and you can find the parking, maybe the parking space nearby, and and so the government is opening, is becoming more diverse. But on the other hand, there is a growing concern from the regulation departments that if we don't have a proper regulation on this economic model, it may goes beyond, or it may goes backwards, or it may goes to the negative parts, just like the bad sharing. It has already become a big problem, or become a common problem in different cities, in different large cities, Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, and even in Chengdu. So especially in some places of interest, maybe in the Central Park, or in the subway, or in the spot, or the place of this subway, the entrance of the subway. The bicycle has already blocked the public space. You can give, and they are not part very, formally. Maybe you can say one bicycle is just parking like this, and one bicycle is like this, and one bicycle is like this. It's a chaos. It's a chaos, and it's. So you can imagine that. So overproduction, or what's the consequences of overproduction? You can just imagine the thing. So one of the regulation is imposed on the platform, and another regulation is imposed on the behavior of the users. So you on the platform, you need to control your step. You control the speed that you produce these bicycles. And on the other hand, the users, the consumers, you cannot just put it in the middle of the road. You have to put. So the government has already outlined some places for these bicycles. You have to put it there. The behaviors have to follow some rules, have to follow some social form. It does not necessarily to be the laws, to be some formal disciplines. But the government is advertising, or is populating, is advertising that the users has to follow some social norms, has to follow these rules. So, this is what I mean by direction, or by guidance. So, from just two sides, the platform and also the users.
Yeah, I got that. Now, what is the one thing you haven't talked about is home sharing, or room sharing, or empty apartments and stuff. Is explain how that sector of the market works. Is that a big sector in China, and how does that work in any differentiation from how it works with Airbnb in other countries and stuff?
Yeah, good question. So thank you. Housing sharing is, this is also the difference maybe between the West and the East. So house sharing, from my understanding, it's not. It's growing, and it's a growing market. It has already been becoming more. It's becoming popular, especially in the young generation. But it's not so hot. If we compare to the car sharing or the bicycle sharing, it's not a hot topic, or it's not a very popular topic in China. As for China, so maybe that I will attribute this. I will attribute the reason to the culture difference. So for Chinese people, the house is not maybe it's not so open. So for the Chinese people, they are not so open to especially for their house, open to a stranger to come in to share their experience, to share their life experience. It's not a tradition for the Chinese people. For the Chinese people, he wants to property. he wants to a boundary. He wants to he wants to a boundary for the house for their private life. So at present, it's not for the Western perspective. You say that you bring all strangers to you welcome a stranger to your house to share a room. It's not so popular in China. But nowadays, the market, the market is interesting. There is also still another business model emerged in China about the house sharing or the room sharing. It's mainly about the I don't you as you say the real estate is very hot in China. So some people have different houses, different rooms, different houses. I don't live there, but I will rent the rooms to other people. But nowadays, but nowadays people not only rent the rooms out, but also share the rooms. I don't live there, but I just put the whole house, the whole room, maybe the rooms to rent. But it's also but it's not listed on the websites for renting, but it's listed on the websites of Airbnb or some house sharing platform.
Wait a minute, it's not listed on. It is on the sharing platforms, but not on other. What platforms? What's the first platform?
The platform just for house renting,
renting. I see.
Yeah.
So they keep it away from the renting, they use the.
You can come here, and it's becoming. So the concept. So there are more and more people using the Airbnb or using the seminar sharing websites to temporarily rent a house just for 3 days, for 1 week, or for example, for me, if I go to Beijing, I don't want to go to the hotel, or I don't want to go to. I just need 3 days. I will rent a house on Airbnb. But it's different from the understanding of the conventional understanding, because the people who own the house he didn't live there. He didn't live here. The house is completely open for the rent, open for the stranger, or open for the consumers. So,
but there's quite a bit. I understand there's. We've talked to another person, a Chinese expert who's an American person, but has written a bunch of books on China, and he mentioned how so many Chinese put they put their investments into real estate or in these second homes or apartments and everything.
Yes.
So there are a lot of these empty homes and empty apartments that could be used for the sharing economy. Is that true in your estimation?
Yes, that's true, and that's also why what I described about the business model emerged. So there are so many houses, and Chinese people wants to invest in the house. But as you may know, the price of the house is climbing. So the investment, it seems that it's just like the prices. It seems that you will gain from the investment, but the house is empty. You can make full use of it. You just rent the house out, but you don't live there. You just make it, but you don't live there, but you just want to make more profits, so you rent it out. But also you don't want to. You are prepared to sell it anytime. You are getting prepared to sell it anytime. So you don't want to rent it a long time. You don't want to rent a house for 1 year, and you just want to rent it for 2 days, 3 days, or just 1 week, just temporarily. So you put the house on the websites of Airbnb and for short time rent. It's becoming more popular nowadays. As you don't need to pay the tax. So, and it's cheaper than hotel, and it's also it's more convenient. You can cook for the consumers. You can cook. You can see the TV, and you can just like enjoy the atmosphere that you are in your at home. So, and it's cheaper than the hotel. So it's becoming popular.
Are there other Chinese companies that, because you've mentioned Airbnb several times here, but are there other Chinese-grown, homegrown versions of this that are kind of just like there's all these bike, companies now? Are there similar Chinese
indeed,
companies?
there
in
are
this
some
space?
similar websites, but I mean, for my understanding, the largest is Airbnb at present in China. So the one reason for this is that maybe it's growing gradually or it's growing slowly. It's different from car sharing or bicycle sharing. It's growing rapidly and lots of investment goes there. But for the house sharing, it's a gradually growing market. So maybe the venture capital didn't or something. The venture capital, there is not enough venture capital flows into this market or wants to expand rapidly.
Yeah.
So the reason why there is why so many venture capital comes into one sector of the market is because of this market is growing rapidly and they want to get profits in the short time. But for this house sharing market, it's growing slowly. So maybe for my understanding, it explains partly why these things happen.
Yeah. Well, also I think it's one thing to buy a bike; it's another thing to buy a car, even. But to buy an apartment, if that model of the capital investment doesn't really work for houses and stuff. It seems
absolutely.
like it's so huge. But this just brings us, because we're getting towards the end of the interview here. The attitude towards foreign sharing economy companies. I mean, you've talked about Airbnb there. How big is the presence in China for what would be the kind of Western versions of a lot of these? Or is it pretty indigenous to the Chinese market? Most of these sharing economy companies, are they? I'm just curious. How does the outside companies fit in this ecosystem, if at all? Aside from Airbnb, you've mentioned Airbnb, but others. Are there other examples of this?
So you mean how the Western companies come to China and to adapt to the ecosystem?
Yeah. Into the sharing economy specifically. Yeah.
Yeah, to the sharing economy. So, it's reported that the Western companies the sharing economy companies did not do well in China. So the most important example is for Uber. So Uber China has already developed its business in China and developed its business and did emerge with Didi. So for my understanding, there is two important factors that maybe the Western companies is not so it's not so familiar with this business model. The first thing is about the offline management. I mean, for sharing economy in China, it's not only for the key to the success is not only concerning the factors online. So, for example, for the car sharing, it's not only because you just put a website or just put an app in the smartphones and you just do the advertisement and the users will get on your website and the users will download your app and use this app to rent to call a taxi or to call a car. It's more than that. You have to do the subsidies. You have to do the offline advertisements, and you have to persuade different kinds of people. You have to go offline to negotiate with different. For example, for Uber, you want to get into Beijing, or if you want to get another city, you have to negotiate with local people. You have to negotiate with the local group of what they think of this app, and to persuade people to get for example, if you want to go to Beijing, you have to persuade a local people to put their cars on the website. But why the local people needs to put their cars on the website? They have a local ecosystem. They can put the cars here on this website. You can put the cars on that website. it makes no difference for them. You have to go offline to negotiate with them. And this is what the Western companies did not, or they are not good at these things. The successful Didi, so Didi is not just a completely internet company at the very beginning. Nowadays, at present, absolutely, it didn't do that kind of things. But at the very beginning, the startup, the startup, the whole people of the startup just to go offline to persuade people, just to give their sheets, give their do some advertisements offline. They do a lot of offline work.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first reason for my understanding. The second reason is about the some understanding of the of the market. So subsidy, or for the Chinese consumers, the price is very important. So the subsidy is very important. But for maybe I don't think that's a common sense for the Western atmosphere. So you don't need to get subsidy to if you feel this service is useful, you will use it.
Mm-hmm.
But for China, even if I think that it's useful, I need to feel the price discrimination, or I want to feel that it's cheap. Then there will a huge user base. And I will recommend my friends to use it, and my friends will also recommend their friends to use it. And so, but the most important thing at the very beginning is about the subsidy, about the price, and also. Or maybe I want to make up the third reason is about the relationship of the capital. For now, the Chinese internet market has already been monopolized for Alibaba and Tencent. They are the two oligarchs in Chinese in Chinese internet companies. So one important success for Didi and also the back sharing is because of they did is the investment from Alibaba and Tencent. What they did from Alibaba and Tencent is not only the investment, but also the traffic, but also the user traffic. Because Alibaba and Tencent, they own the largest user base in China. If the Alipay, if the function of Didi has been embedded in Alipay, it will be guided so many traffic will be guided to Didi. Just so, but the first thing is you have to be integrated. You have to be embedded into the Alipay ecosystem. So you can, because every time I open my smartphone, I will open the Alipay or the apps of Alibaba and Tencent or the WeChat. So, but so the advantage is that your apps is embedded into WeChat is that so many traffic can be guided there. Mm-hmm. But for the Western companies, for example, for the Uber, it's a little difficult for Uber to think of the cooperation or to accept the investment from Alibaba, I think, for my understanding. So if so, you will lose a lot of traffic. You will at the very beginning. And that's the reason. That's one of the reasons why Didi beats Uber and Uber China gives up.
But why do you think Airbnb is doing? What is the secret to Airbnb's success? So it seems to be because you were mentioning how they were actually thriving, slow. They're not expanding dramatically, but they're at the same time having steady growth. There's not a lot of competition locally. Is there any reason for that? Why different strategy, or just a different part of the market, or why is that?
For my understanding, maybe it's because of the different parts of the market. This is the first reason. So it focuses on a different market, and this market is not so popular. It's not so. It did not gain so much focus from the other parts. And the second, for my understanding, so the house, the house sharing is more depends on it more depends on the social capital or social relationship. That's the reason for it is because house is you need more investment than cars and bicycles and things like that if you want to pursue the scale. If you want to pursue the scale similar to the bicycles, you almost have to own most of the houses of this country. It's impossible.
Yeah.
So so when you are focusing on the social capital, so when this business is mainly depends on the social capital, you have to use some. I mean, one strategy for the Airbnb, is so successful is that the advertisement of Airbnb is very, it's very touching and it's very. I will feel warm for the advertisement, and also for the Airbnb, I think it's more related to their how can I say? How can I describe that? It's more related to their offline advertisement. So, it didn't. It didn't do that kind of sense to. It didn't do that kind of sense to persuade every people to get involved into this market. It will helps people to. For example, to build your house very nicely, or to just to keep your room clean, and he will help people, and he will do the quality control and quality control. But for other people, for the other competitors, they just pursue the scale, but the consumer experience is not as good as what the Airbnb do with the quality control. So, for this market, on one hand, it's because of the special characteristic of this market. On the other hand, it's because of the conservative strategy for the Airbnb maybe. So the match together.
Interesting. Final word, because we got to wrap up here. But
Okay.
given you've described a lot of problems potentially, but also a lot of popularity. China's a lot of people in a relatively small space. Do you think the sharing economy is going to continue as a model for sharing, resources over time, and that you'll get through this period of needing regulation and overproduction and some of the things you've mentioned here? Do you feel confident that you'll move beyond that and that China will actually figure this out in a more kind of sustainable way long term?
Yeah, for me, I think it's for sure. For me, I'm confident that sharing economy will get more and more popular in China. There are two simple reasons. The first is that the consumers or the customers or the users have already get used to this concept, sharing, not owning. So share a resource, not own a resource. And also because of the two categories, or because of the innovators of this market, there are more and more resources may be shared in the future, and so this from the market perspective. And the second reason is for the government. The government is embracing sharing economy. Never than before. So there are more and more governments labeled sharing economy as their new orientation. So just also take the Chengdu as an example. The government is promoting the sharing of the parking resources, is the sharing of the computing power, the sharing of the digital the government digital data, the sharing of everything. So the government, as you may know, the Chinese government is very powerful, and he can use many policy tools to help the development of sharing economy. No matter it's regulation or whatever it's regulation or something other policies, but if the government intervenes into this market, it's not only it's more than regulation. It can do other things to promote the development of the sharing economy, for the subsidies, the tax, and the tax, the land, the houses, or the resources that he can put into this is more than is more it's better than the market. And I cannot say it's better than the market, but the government is open to the sharing economy. Also, I can say that. So the future, I think there will be more and more business models, and there will be more and more sectors, vertical sectors that is shared in the future. So, but the dynamic is very complex. So for the perspective of the government and also the social benefits, we need to get the sharing economy into a direction that benefits all.
Which is the theme of actually our series, which is how do we make the sharing economy work for everyone? So that's a perfect place to end this interview, and because you basically echoed the idea of the entire series, which is how do we think through this sharing economy, how do we get it working for everyone, whether it's in the United States here, whether it's in China. We've got a lot of little issues to work out, but in the long run, I think it's a clear direction to move in. So
yes, of course. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, and all the way from Chengdu. Actually, it's the other side of the planet, and it's been a great conversation and really helpful to have us understand what's going on there.
Well, we welcome all to come to China and all to come to Chengdu to see the sharing economy and to enjoy the sharing economy, and it's very fantastic. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and
thank you.
We're out. Thank you.